Hello, everybody, and welcome to Walking Down the Warwick Road, another installment looking back at the history and culture of this great football club. Joining me, as always, my co-hosts, Pete Molyneux. How are you doing?
Tim, I'm fine. Sweltering in the Manchester sun at the moment.
It's like a role reversal because normally it's me that's sweltering, but we have rainy Manchester weather over here. So,
right.
I think we've traded.
Well, we're just going to lap this up while it lasts.
Absolutely. We're back with our heroes episode, and Pete, it's been a bit of an interesting week, hasn't it? We're gonna get into heroes and who our personal heroes are, but before we do that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Bowie first.
Beckham special. Can he dip it? Dropped it in. Yes, he has. Beckham's back. Cleared away as far as Ryan Giggs, who's placed one for Michael Owen. Oh, this is incredible.
A little segue, a little insight into some of the heroes that we're going to talk about today. Some of which I'm sure people will agree with. Some of them might take a little bit of defending, but I will do my best. Pete, it's been an interesting week, and for some context in terms of how me and Pete talk, in terms of how we come up with the shows and we get show ideas, and with the events that transpired over the last week and a half, this show sort of wrote itself, didn't it, Pete? In terms of what our topic was going to be. What are your thoughts on the return of the prodigal son, one of United's biggest heroes, Ronaldo?
Well, I always think every week in United's history is special, Tim. There's never a dull moment, as Rod Stewart once sang. But the last 10 days to have witnessed something beyond special. And the return of Cristiano Ronaldo has brought incredible scenes, endless headlines. And I think we are all surprised that Twitter or some part of social media hasn't just imploded, because it's caught the imagination of United fans and football fans alike. Mm-hmm. And I've never quite known anything like it. Last Sunday, I went to the Wolves game, and before, during, and after the match, there was an incredible atmosphere. The outside of cup finals, I've never experienced in what you might call an ordinary league game. Yep. And there was scenes of unbridled joy, just people dancing around. This is before the match had started, before the goal had gone in. And on the way back, my car was parked about 2 miles up the road one way, but I couldn't be bothered heading for the car. I wanted to stay with the United fans. It was snaking out of the ground, just singing Viva Ronaldo. And I ended up walking back to the coach park and then the train station. And I got on the train quite happily, to be honest, and gone back for my car another day. But the common sense took in. But everybody that's greeted anyone this week that is a Red, they've not said hello. They just said Viva Ronaldo. Yes. So it's great. I loved him when he was at Old Trafford, of course. Why wouldn't you? He took us to the height of the World Club Championship. We were the best team, not just in England, not just in Europe, but in the world. And he left us too soon, but he wanted to go. We wished him luck. And at 36, he is still better than most top players, I think. And what he can offer on and off the pitch, I think, could tip the scales for United this season. I already thought we were in a strong position, but this has been something else. So I don't know if have you got a clip from the Wolves game, Tim?
I don't. No, I don't. I don't have the clip, but you did send it to me. You're right. I meant to upload it for this episode. But if you go, I'll put it on. I'll put it on our Twitter page. If you're watching this, folks, I'll retweet it from the Walking on the Warwick Road Twitter page today, and we can get your reaction to it. It is tremendous. It's a tremendous atmosphere around the club. It's a lift. It's absolute lift to the club. Pete, you touched on, we know what Ronaldo can do on the pitch. Obviously, leading scorer last year in Serie A, the age of 36. We're probably not going to see the marauding, right winger that we saw all those years ago. When in that 07-08 season when the strategy was essentially get the ball to Ronaldo and let him run at players. But you're right. The lift that it's given the club has just been immense. There's lineups outside of the mega store for Ronaldo shirts. I got the sense though when it happened, Pete, that knowing full well that how tremendously skilled he is and what he can do on the pitch, but it brought out a lot of emotion, it seemed like, in United fans, and I think that sort of leads us into today and what we're going to talk about. And when you and I discussed how do we look at heroes, how do we break down heroes, because we've had so many great players at our club, and you and I were talking, well, you can pick out your best Lon Charlton, your Cantonas, your Scholes, all the tremendous players. The list goes on and on and on all through the decades. Brian Robson, Norman Whiteside. How do you quantify a hero? And then the last episode we did goal scorers, and we looked at a very, I guess, statistical analysis, or broke them down into categories to do that. But today, feeding off that emotion that came from that United transfer and how giddy and happy and excited people were, you and I are taking a more of an emotional approach to this show today in terms of who were personal heroes to us, who really pulled at our heartstrings, not necessarily who scored the most goals or who made the most appearances. Who was it that really connected with us and resonated with us? And is there a personal reason as to why that transpired? And do you think that's what really makes a hero, Pete? I mean, in your opinion, what really makes a hero in terms of United heroes? Or is it a combination of both?
Often in life, the biggest, the best, the tallest, the longest, the highest, whether it's sport or life, usually brings acclaim and adoration. And United's history is absolutely littered with players like that, right back to 1878, although I'd struggle to name some of the early ones. But then there are players who just come in for a small number of games, only play a small number of the games, and we'll be covering. I'll cover a couple of those who win the hearts of United supporters almost right away. Funny enough, Ronaldo did that. He went on to great things in his 6-year career and at United and since. But in that first game against Bolton at home, he came on, and everybody, to a man, to a woman, you just thought, "Oh, hello, who's this?" In fact, he almost overdid it a bit with his tricks and his step overs, but you could not ignore him. Very few players have an impact like that. So you might say, well, Makeda did, or you might say Daniel James scored in his first game against Chelsea. Well, he did. They had a good early impact, but they never really kind of built on it and won the hearts of the fans right away and carried it with them till the end of their day. So some players, there are varying reasons why they do that. I'd say just generally though, as a supporter of 50 odd years, I want my manager at Old Trafford and the side that goes on the pitch in a red shirt at Old Trafford or whatever colour away from home. I want it to be me in the dugout or me on the pitch. I want them to want United to win so much, not at all costs, but so much. It matters. It really matters. And any player that personifies that usually wins the hearts of the fans, no matter what they might go on to achieve in terms of medals or records. So, yeah,
and certainly in a working class town, and the roots of the club with United, and it was always that mantra that if you gave your all for the supporters, they'll get behind you. And there's certain cities where that's true, and that's no more true than in Manchester and the working class roots of that city. So, right. Well, let's jump into it. And Pete, you're going to go first. And remember, folks, these are our personal heroes. These are people that resonated with us for whatever reason, and we'll explain that as to why. But get in the comments and let us know who your personal heroes are. Tell us who it was that you that really tugged at your heartstrings in terms of when they put on a United shirt for whatever reason it is. It might be a controversial figure for some people, but for you, maybe it was Carlos Tevez or whoever it was. So let us know who it was. Get in the comments, and we'll pull your comments up on the screen here. But we're gonna get going here.
And also, Tim, and maybe why they would just in a few words. Why they meant so much. You know,
exactly.
What was about that player.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to do 7 each in keeping with Cristiano Ronaldo getting the shirt, our great number 7s. All our heroes haven't played number 7, but we're going to go for 7 each. We can't win because you'd need to do 1,007. But we'll put it out there and people can say what they want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a good point to include the number 7 in honor of our returning number 7. So, all right, Pete, well, we'll start with you, and I'll pull up your first hero. And you want to talk us through sort of, John Fitzpatrick and why he became one of your heroes?
Definitely falls into the category of one of the lesser known heroes, and maybe for people that didn't watch them in the 60s. But nevertheless, John Fitzpatrick, I started watching, I became aware of Manchester United in the 1963 Cup final when I asked my dad who was playing on TV in the final, and he told me it was Leicester United, and I opted for United. And that was my first attachment to the club. Started watching the youth team 63-64 because I was only 9. I was too small to be taken to the big games, my dad said. But that youth team was a great youth team and won the Youth Cup that season, 63-64. Had a lot of players that would go on and play in the European Cup, or a few players, Johnny Aston, Georgie Best, David Sadler, Jimmy Rimmer. But there was a little guy there, John Fitzpatrick. He started off as a right half. First of all, he had a quite controversial for 1963. Bestie didn't even have long hair then, but Fitzpatrick did. And I loved the Rolling Stones at that time. And he looked like he could play on he looked like he could have walked out of the Rolling Stones. Even lately, it looks like he could play in the Stone Roses. He's got that sort of haircut. But he also looked like he could have just come off the Stretford end, taken his combat jacket off and put a United kit on and played because he's a bit of a scruffy bugger. But his tenacity was superb. First of all, as a right half, a right-sided midfield player, but then he made his name as a fullback. And I think it was just that he gave everything for United. He was a tough tackler. He attracted adjective, abrasive, full-on, ferocious tackler. He was only 5'6", but an Aberdonian, a tough Scot, and he played from 64 till about 72 in United's team. Got a knee injury about halfway through that, which really troubled him for the second half of his career. He had to retire at 26, which was very sad. He has a claim to fame in United's history that when substitutes were first allowed in the game, in the league games in 65-66, John Fitzpatrick came on for Dennis Law in a game against Tottenham in October 65, and he was United's first ever substitute. So that don't make him a hero. It's just one of his claims to fame. But the Stretford Enders loved him for his commitment to the cause. He gave everything, and he had 150 appearances, so he didn't do too bad. But sadly, he passed away last year in December 2020. Passed away, aged 74. For most of his time in the first team, he was either understudy to Nobby Stiles, and he was a tough tackler like Stiles, or he made the shirt his own. From about 1968 onwards, So ferocious little player, John Fitzpatrick, and any Stretford Ender from the time loved him. And they used to sing the song. There was a song called Do You Remember by The Scaffold. And the song was Johnny Fitzpatrick. We didn't make complicated songs on the Stretford End in those days, but it echoed around that ground many, many times.
Good one. I love it, Pete. And what, for you personally, was it just the, like you touched on tenacity, the shift that he would put in? Is that what sort of adhered you to him, or, is that really what drew you in?
It caught me eye because of his long hair. He stood out. I wanted long hair like him. I was only 9, and my dad wouldn't let me have that. So that caught my attention. But then you just realise he was getting stuck in. He was getting stuck in all the time. And probably about 95 of the tackles were fair. the 5% that weren't, sometimes you winced. It was his commitment to cause, winning the game. And right from the minute he crossed that line to the minute he came across it again, he gave everything for the club.
Brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Right. Well, I'll go to my first one here, and my first one is, you talked about versatility and the versatile player himself, and John O'Shea, who I think played everywhere apart from maybe striker during his time at United in the forward line, but played deputized in goal against Spurs in 2007. Broke into the team sort of after that transition from the treble-winning side when he began deputizing for Rio Ferdinand injury at the start of that sort of transition period into that next team, and he broke into center back there. But just a tremendous, played a right back, he's played a left back, played in the midfield. And of course, the picture that I chose to sort of show for him, of course, is the winner, the smash and grab against Liverpool, which really sealed the title for us in that 06-07 season at Anfield. And I think for many United fans, if you score a goal in front of the Kop that essentially wins the title, that is going to give you hero status on its own. But much like you, Pete, I tend to gravitate towards the players that will put in a shift. That we all know about the glamour players and the players that are going to win you games, but much like we see with teams around the world where you have stars, you need those players that can drop in and do a job for you wherever you need them. And for me, he scored a goal against Arsenal as well that I remember when the bust up, the game with the bust up with Roy Keane in the tunnel. That lovely chip towards the end of the game to win that one, or to seal that one, I should say. So for me, just put in a shift, like you said, the work rate. Of course, the maybe made famous through memes and things on social media for the nutmegging Figo as well, which is just a little footnote, but yeah, just a tremendous servant to the club over his time there. And you look at, we'll touch on maybe players after this that we're sort of in our, you talked about trying to include all the players, but we're in the same mold as O'Shea. But I just went with John O'Shea just because of his versatility and over that time period. And it was I had an O'Shea shirt sort of in honor of John O'Shea because I just love the role that he played. What do you remember about John O'Shea?
Very much what you said there. Again, Gay, you've got to give your all. You can't be a hero at Old Trafford if you don't give your all, and you seem to give your all. But John O'Shea, one of several very versatile players that United have had over the years, even going back to Busby. Players that have played wing back, full back, winger. Centre half, right back. John O'Shea, you could put him anywhere. They even put him in midfield. In fact, think about it. When him and Giggsy went in midfield, when Veron was injured and Beckham was injured, he could step in there, commanding as a centre half. Played with a smile on his face. The fans loved him. The heroes, most United players have a song, but any of the heroes always have a song, even if it's not the best song in the world. And Johnny goes marching down the wing, which I'm sure
O'Shea.
will have the copyright on. That really resonated at Old Trafford many times. Saw that win at Anfield when we jumped as high as the sky. That was crucial in that title race. A solid player. Great. I can well deserves the hero status.
That goal, the goal that he scored at Anfield, my memory of that game is I remember watching it with my dad, and I remember getting we got battered that game, and we rode our luck. I think they hit the post. It was that second half. Van der Sar made a couple of just ridiculous saves. And I just remember my dad.
No, sorry, go on, Tim.
No, I was just going to say, I just remember saying to my dad, like, we're going to concede here. And he was like, oh, we're hanging in there. And then I remember with about 10 minutes left, I said, all right, what's your prediction? Here we are into the last 10 minutes. And he said, United are going to nick it 1-0. And I said, really? And I remembered after, and I said, how did you, he said, it's two big teams. He said, it's United at Anfield. And he said, you got to feel the way the game was going, that they rode their luck, that they were going to get one more chance. And he said, if you give a team like United one more chance, they can take that chance. And I said, okay, fair enough. But, good
on your dad.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly, I think it was around March time, so it was certainly neck and neck. But it was one of Sky's early proper Super Sundays. I think Arsenal were playing Chelsea, and it was between us, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea for the title in 06-07. City hadn't been given the gift of oil yet at that stage. So it was those four clubs. United trying desperately to claw back from London the power in English football, with Mourinho and Wenger taking the title 3 times, 3 years on the run. And so it was crucial. But that was the most crucial goal in the most crucial game at the most crucial part of the season. So, it'd be a hero. It deserves a statue just for that. And I'd build it I'd build it just outside the Kop.
Yes. Well, I remember Gary Neville's quote after that game. I think in an interview, he said, John O'Shea's just done my dream, scoring a winner in front of the Kop in stoppage time. The absolute scenes after when that goal went in, it was mental. It came across as mental on TV in the away end. So to be there, I can imagine was just terrific. But right, moving on, Pete, to your second one. And it's a name that certainly a lot of United fans, every United fan will know. A man that's come up on numerous, in the shows that we've done in the past, numerous times. The Belfast boy, Georgie Best. And take it away.
Yeah. I suppose what was just explained to our viewer is that because we could have taken this over, it had to be players we've seen either kind of live on the stand or live in the ground. Yeah. And that I've taken from 64 to about the 80s, and Tim's done the rest.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'd have just been overlapping so much. So mine will be front end. I don't live in. I do live in a Georgie Best world, but I don't live in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Right.
But most of this is those early years, and I've got to come clean right away. George Best is, and always has been my hero. He was in that same team as John Fitzpatrick. And whilst Fitzy initially caught my eye, and I loved him for the reason I said earlier, and made it onto the back of my combat jacket and felt it fits, Georgie Best was just something else. And when I first saw him playing the autumn of 1963 in that youth team, and he just lit up my life. He didn't just light up the stadium, but he lit up a lifelong love affair that I had with Manchester United and with the game. So there's always a certain romance there, I guess, with the first play, your first hero. But I do try and dissociate that, or not uncouple that with the nostalgia away from the things he actually did on the park. And he does stand the test of time, George Best. And I think anybody that's seen him in the years since would agree. There's probably only been Messi and Ronaldo that can come near him. They've had better longevity. But George Best just had any United player. The reason we love United is we want them to, the magic around United, the daring do, the attacking play, the excitement, the attractive football. And if you could just pick one player from United's 140-odd year history to encompass that, it would be George Best, I feel. He could do everything. I know it's a cliche, but he could dribble, brilliant dribbler. The ball seemed attached to his feet, so that was exciting. He could shoot, he could tackle, he could head. But he was no prima donna. If he lost the ball, and you see some of the clips on YouTube, he'd chase back 50 or 60 yards to get the ball back. He took it as an injustice and a self-affront that somebody had taken the ball off him. Not in anger, but in, okay, if you take it off me, I'm going to take it off you. So his work rate was unbelievable, I saw him playing. First time I saw him play was in a youth team match against Barrow, and we beat them 14-1. 14-1. Best got a hat-trick, but he wasn't the highest scorer. There was another lad got 5 that day. I'm not sure if it was a guy called Frank Bartz. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But from that moment on, I fell in love with Bestie. He came into the first team that season. I started watching the first team, 64-65, and he just was... you couldn't just take your eyes off him when he had the ball. United were always going to do something, and with the other players had in the side as well, it was just a brilliant roller coaster ride. Whether we won, lost, or draw, and we usually won. He's great. Mm-hmm. We had a few great nights going to Lisbon in March '66, scoring the first 2 goals to set United on course for a 5-1 win against Benfica. Never been beaten by a foreign side until then. And then, of course, he took us on to the European Cup final win in '68, the first ever English team to be crowned champions of Europe. And Bestie got the first goal in extra time and kicked in a 4-1 lead and it allowed us to sing them home for 20 minutes. I saw him get 6 at Northampton in a cup tie and an 8-2 victory. Only 2 players ever scored 6 in a game for United, and Bestie's one of them. But it just was extra special. And I probably don't need to say anymore. If people go on YouTube, you've probably seen a lot of Georgie Best goals. Have a look at them again. But look at 2 things. Look at the tackles that came in on him, and some of them were waist high at best. And look at the state of the pitches that he did a lot of this on. And you just have to be in awe of his ball control and the way he could set the game rolling on pitches like that, where with every opposition team had players in their team who were destroyers. Ron Harris at Chelsea, Tommy Smith at Liverpool, Norman Hunter Leeds, Peter Storey, Billy Bonds, and
Billy Bremner.
Exactly. And they made Reservoir Dogs look like a night out with Alan Carr. They were real physical guys. Best rode most of those tackles, just got up and then showed them by the genius of his football. A genius, Georgie Best. An appropriate name, Georgie Best, the best, and always was, I think, and always will be. God bless him. And a little story, Bill Shankly, in the 60s when Liverpool and Man United were neck and neck for 4 years solid. Bill Shankly went through the United team at Anfield before the kickoff with his players. And he started saying, look, you've got Bobby Charlton out there. They say he's a great player, but he's an old man now. Bill Folks, he's another old man, blah, blah, blah. Pat Credden, very slow. Laurie's got dodgy knees. He went through all the team and made disparaging remarks about the United team.
Right.
And Ron Yates, the Liverpool captain, apparently says, but you've not mentioned George Best, boss. He said, bloody hell, he says, nothing I can say. You're not going to stop George Best. He said, but if you can't beat one man, what are you here for? I think it's a true story. I think I've heard people tell that about Liverpool players tell that about Shankly, but it kind of sums things up. Unstoppable.
You touched on the tackles. Like I absolutely, I encourage people to go on YouTube and check out those clips, because some of those tackles, they didn't call him Chopper Harris for nothing. You see some of the tackles that came in from Ron Harris at Chelsea, and those epic battles with Billy Bremner at Leeds were 2 of the ones even that George Best, if you've read his book, points to as epic battles that he had. But certainly, there's nothing more to be said. I mean, we all know about George Best, but tremendous insight from you there, Pete. Right. So into my second one, and is Dennis Irwin, Mr. Reliable. Was there through it all. Could play either side, left or right. In fact, some people would argue that he was. He could play on the left or the right. Hello.
I think we lost you for a sec there, Tim.
Am I?
No, still can't hear you. Hello, Tim.
Can you hear me now?
Can now, yeah.
Am I back?
Yes, I thought you'd welled up there about your memories of Dennis Irwin.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so lost me for a minute, but I'm back. But yeah, Dennis Irwin could play on the left or the right. Some people would even argue that he was a better right back than he was left back, but certainly made that left back position his own. Free kick taker, penalties, but just again, one of those players, Pete, I guess along the lines of John O'Shea, that came into the team, made, just a stalwart, just showed up professional, put in a shift, a true, could defend, but could get forward as well. We would see him get forward and deliver dangerous balls in, could overlap, but just a tremendous defender too. A player that I had the chance to meet here in Toronto when United came over here for their tour, and had the chance to meet Paddy Curran and Dennis over here, and just a tremendous guy too. Had a pint with him in Toronto, signed a shirt for me. A true professional, down to earth, and not only a tremendous player. So I think that that's one of the reasons too, is having that personal interaction with a player maybe that I respected, but then to be able to talk to him and sat down with him and had a tremendous conversation about defending. And Dennis, is it more difficult to defend a player that has pace and wants to get in behind you, or a player that is skillful and wants to run at you, and having those sort of discussions. So what are your thoughts or your memories of Dennis Irwin?
Yeah, as you said, you've said there, Mr. Reliable, and he was, and one that he would be fit for nearly every game. And I think Fergie said himself he was usually first on the team sheet. And Fergie don't usually say things like that after he finished playing. Yes. I remember seeing him play. He got spotted when he played against us for Oldham in those cup semi-finals in 1990. And he just looked very, very, very solid. And I can imagine being a lovely man as a person, quiet, just got on with the job. Again, that's another thing about a hero. Just gets on with the job. Doesn't attract all the headlines for the wrong reasons, or maybe superficial reasons, should we say, the colour of his hair or whatever. Just got on with the job.
Of course, his role in the Eric Cantona transfer, when triggered by the Leeds call to United to try to poach Dennis Irwin, quickly rebuffed, but led to the conversation about Eric Cantona. So certainly a tremendous player, right, Pete? We'll go to number 3 for you, and somebody that is 6'2" with eyes of blue.
He certainly was. He certainly was. 6'2", eyes of blue. Now this, anybody that saw this guy play would not think it was a surprise selection, but it is an odd selection in that Jim Holton played. He joined United January 73 and left in 1976. So he was only there 3 years. But he actually only played through 1973 and 1974 because he broke his leg in December 74 in a 4-4 draw at Sheffield Wednesday. And the leg never recovered. It broke again when he came back in a reserve match, and sadly he never played again. So the impact he had in those 63 games playing for United through the calendar year of 73 and 74 makes it a strange choice. But as I say, if you ask any Red who watched him, he became an instant hero, a bit like, as I mentioned, Ronaldo before. There's been certain other players. Les Sealey had it, for those that remember him coming as a goalie, and he came out to catch the ball in the early part of the match. He was signed to replace Jim Leighton, and all the Stretford end took to him right away. But Jim Holton was the same. And what he was a very big, very tall, 6'2", and broad Scot who played for West Brom in his younger days, then gone to Shrewsbury. But Tommy Dock had just arrived. He liked Scotsman in his team, Tommy Dock. We discussed that a few months ago. And he bought Jim Holton from Shrewsbury for only about 80,000. Now, this was at a time when United had struggled for 4 years since Bill Fowkes went to get a stalwart of a centre-half. Mm-hmm. Any Fergie showed this, that any team that wins the league needs a good defence, not just a good attack. In fact, you first of all need a good defence. And United were struggling to find that. When Jim Holton came in, and he wasn't a cultured footballer, but he was big. He did the right thing. It was before the footballing centre halves, really. If you're a big lad and you could take on the big centre forward you're up against and do a good job, then that was fine. He had alongside him at the time Martin Buchan, who was another guy I'll come to shortly. And for those 2 calendar years, 73, 74, they formed a solid partnership that helped turn a side that was in free fall from being European champions in 68 to relegated in 74. He and a few others under Doherty, they stopped the free fall and then gradually turned it round. And Jim Holton played a massive part in that. He didn't win anything. United didn't in that time. But again, he gave his all. He got stuck in, sometimes a little bit over the time. But his interplay with the Stretford end was superb. He loved the songs they sang for him. And the 6'2" Eyes of Blue went viral, not just on the Stretford end, but at Hampden Park. He played that well through 73 and early 74. Yep. He went to the World Cup in 1974 with a few with the Scotland team, and probably would have been there for a few years, except for this broken leg, which obviously he struggled with, never recovered from. But he personified a spirit in, I wouldn't say United's darkest hour, because we've had darker days than the relegation, but relegation. We've only been relegated once in the last 83 years. That was something to go through for a supporter then. And there were dark times, and we were losing our heroes. Best, Law and Charlton would all go within 12 months of Jim Holton coming. Jim Holton gave the Stretford end a new hero, and we absolutely adored him. And I think he would have played many, many more games for United, but for the injury he got. He put his heart and soul into every game, and we loved him. Sadly, he passed away in 1993, aged only 42. Yeah. So he didn't have good luck with injuries in the latter part of his career or his life, but that doesn't take anything away from those 2 years he gave to us.
Amazing.
Those 2 years, in those 63 games he played. That's all. But you talk to anybody that's got a head full of grey hair or no hair at all, and they will just tell you how good Jim Holton was, how much they loved him. Any Red would.
Brilliant stuff, Pete. Well, for my third one, so I've had 2 players that we talked about were stalwarts in the team and reliable and not all that flashy, but now we'll come to coolness personified, the man himself, David Beckham. And I specifically chose this picture because this is sort of 21-year-old Tim at uni with that exact United kit, the long sleeve, tried to pull off the hair like him. I did my best, but I never looked as cool as Bex. But we've sort of mentioned this before. You've talked about how the likes of Busby, Charlton, Law, and then of course into the Doherty era drew you in. Obviously was a massive United fan before this, but it was Beckham in that team, 97, 98, and then you saw the clip in the opener there, the equalizer coming off the back of the World Cup where he was sent off and scoring that equalizer against Leicester City on the first day of the season, and then of course he started dating Posh and just became this icon, and not only for his free kicks and his ability to cross a football, but then it just sort of became, everybody knew who David Beckham was, and it just came. He was like, I guess you would equate him to, in terms of his global stardom, maybe the Georgie Best of my era in terms of David Beckham, the icon. So truly one of my early heroes. Tried to pull off a look like him. It never really did come off, but yeah, Bex.
Yeah, very good. It's funny how we go through that, don't we? As men, you see them. And there's a part of it. The love for the hero is can go beyond the football field. Just going back to Bestie, and it probably does apply to Beckham.
Yeah.
The girls loved him.
Yep.
As fans maybe of his football, but also of his looks and his persona.
Yep.
Same with Georgie Best and Beckham.
Yeah.
They sold all sorts of products. The face of Beckham or Best sold many products, but there's nothing wrong with that. The guys love Best as much as the girls love Best, just for slightly different reasons, and
for sure.
And the same with Beckham, an icon, a male icon, very, very good. I think you touched on meeting Irwin and him being a nice fella. I think Beckham is a very good man. No one's perfect, but he's a very good man and a very good father figure, etc. And very good ambassador for manhood, if you will, the good side of the patriarchy. If you can be a good side of patriarchy.
Such a good point. No, that's a very good point, Pete. Absolutely. And as somebody with young kids, he is certainly a role model in terms of the fatherly sense as well. So, but yeah, so that's just a thing. I mean, we talked about it off the top. This is very much a personal reflection amongst heroes, and that's what we want to try to come across with this was, it's that emotional attachment that we have to these players in terms of, because football transcends into life, I suppose, especially when you love football as much as you and I do, it sort of makes that cross into your livelihood and how it influences your lives. So, your life. So, certainly Beckham and Georgie Best for you are in that, and Lon Charlton for you are in that persona with the long hair, and John Fitzpatrick, like you touched on, with the long hair. I would have loved to see. You need to pull out a picture of long-haired Pete Molyneux if you have one kicking around, Pete. I have the one with you and Tommy Docherty, but if you're able to pull it off, you need to pull it out.
Oh, well, that's fair long hair. I went for perms somewhere in the 90s, about 10 years after it was fashionable. Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Right.
Yeah, I've got some. I'll put them out. But so we're on to Willie Morgan, another winger. Now we love our wingers. We love our wingers at Old Trafford. The wingers that belt up and down the flanks, can dribble, can lay on goals, can go past opponents. They get us off our seats, and if we stood up already, they get us on our tiptoes. And Willie Morgan fell into that category. He arrived just after United had been the first English team to win the European Cup. Busby signed him in August '68 from Burnley. He'd been a good winger for 5 years with Burnley.
Right.
But what had happened is he'd lost David Hurd to a broken leg. There seems to be a theme in this, the broken leg. But Hurd was towards the end of his career, 67, 68. Hurd, his career was finished, bless him. Johnny Aston, though, who played in that European Cup final as a young lad, 21, in the third game of the 68-69 season, he broke his leg in the derby against City. Not a bad tackle, just unfortunate. So Busby quickly went out because he was running low then on forwards. I mean, he still had Best, Lord and Charlton. You wouldn't why he needed anybody else, but he needed someone to lay on it. And he bought Willie Morgan for a club record and a British record fee of about 117,000. Doesn't sound much now, but £117,000 was a British record fee. And he bought Willie Morgan. And he played on the right wing, at number 7, Bestie on the left, and you had in the middle Kidd, Charlton, Law. And so it started 5 years where United had a brilliant attack. Morgan, Kidd, Charlton, Law, Best. Others came in, but they were the main 5. We were a brilliant attacking side, and on our day, we could blow teams away. Sadly, and for no obvious reason, we just couldn't put a good defence together in those days. There were few great full-backs or half-backs or centre-backs in United's time immediately after the European Cup win, but that's a separate issue. So Willie Morgan came in. We didn't win anything during that period, 68 to 73, but he was still playing in the European Cup, 68-69, got us to the semi-final, played in the World Club Championship that year and scored at Old Trafford in the home leg against the Studiantes. He was instrumental in getting us to League Cup finals and FA Cup semi-finals. And United were always in the top 10, even after that fall from grace after winning the European Cup. So very much playing top class football, and really then became a bit of a transition, I guess. He moved to midfield in 71. O'Farrell, who'd come in to replace McGuinness, who'd come in very soon after Busby had gone. O'Farrell converted into midfield, and he put Bobby Charlton there and Alan Gowling. And for the start of season 71-72, it worked a treat. We went to the top of the league, and we thought, hey ho, we're back. Unfortunately, it fell away. It fell away then, and 2 years later, we were relegated. But the thing about Willie Morgan, one, he was a very, very good player, very tricky right winger, great ball skills, again, like Best, he could dribble, hard working, could score goals as well. But he stuck around at United from 68 to 75 when it would have been easier to go and move to any other club. And again, we were looking for heroes. We needed heroes. Bestlaw and Charlton, even before they went, were on the wane a little bit, But Willie Morgan stuck at it. He was club captain for quite a bit of the time when Tommy Dock first came in 72. And again, he helped turn Manchester United round, because by the time he left in 75, United had been relegated, but had won the way back to the top flight. Willie Morgan played a very key part in that as an it wasn't an old player, but he was a more mature player, very experienced player. Again, been to the World Cup with Scotland in 74. And I just loved him. I love watching him. Willie Morgan on the wing. We've got Willie Morgan on the wing. Willie Morgan. And again, I told you we didn't do great songs, but they still sing it in some before the games. He was adored, again, by the Stretford end. He was adored by the lads and the lasses for all sorts of reasons.
Right.
Met him a couple of times, really nice fella. Sadly, fell out with the Dock, but that's another story, and moved on in 1975. But will always be remembered fondly by those that watched him in that transitional period between, say, the Busby and the Docherty years.
Right. Nice one, Pete. Right. Well, talking about players who stuck around when times got tough, and one of my heroes, Luke Shaw, a player who obviously had that horrendous injury, the leg break. A player who under a couple managers, really had to fight to keep his place in the team. And you touched about players that could have left when times got tough, and maybe they didn't feel like there was a place for them at United. Certainly under Mourinho, things I think got tough for him. Rumors of the strained relationship between those two, and some comments made about him publicly by the manager. And he just put his head down and got to it. And his performances over the last year and a half have been tremendous. Player of the year last year, obviously won a stalwart for England this year at the Euros, the team that got to the final, scored in the final, has made that left back position his own. And just a lot of time for a player like that who, no fuss, you don't hear anything about him off the pitch. Another player who's, a young family, who's just, a dad, and also a player that, is loved and adored by his teammates. So one of my heroes, and certainly someone who I think deserves a lot of respect and admiration from United fans.
I agree 100%, Tim. The way he's come back from the injury and Mourinho's bizarre man management, credit to the man and the player, and hopefully going to serve United well for a few years yet. Yeah,
absolutely. Right, on to number 5 for you, I believe.
Yes, I think so.
Player that came in that you touched on a bit earlier, that came in under Franco Farrell. One of Franco Farrell's signings, if I remember correctly, just before the Dock left, was Martin Buchan.
That's right, yes. And of course, time is slipping away. I can see here we're so engrossed in our heroes. The clock seems to have speeded up. So I'll make it briefish, but that's no disrespect to Martin Buchan. On the Tuesday morning, 29th of February, 1972, I was on the football special, heading to Middlesbrough, packed with United fans for an FA Cup replay. It's being played in the afternoon because there's a miners' strike on. This was 72, well before the 84 miners' strike in Britain. And they weren't allowed floodlights. But that wasn't the main story. The main story was that United had signed a guy called Martin Buchan, a young Scottish captain, captained Aberdeen to a surprise FA Cup win over Celtic to win the cup in 1970. And O'Farrell, when it fell apart at the end of that 1971 start to the season that I mentioned, decided these guys won't do it that I've inherited. I need to rebuild. And Martin Buchan was the first building block in that. O'Farrell wouldn't see out the year of 1972, but Martin Buchan spent 12 years at Old Trafford, playing over 450 games. Absolutely coolness personified as a what we knew as a left back then, but left side of left centre back. Skillful on the ball. Great players always have time on the ball. Beckenbauer was the epitome of that. They never seemed rushed. Martin Buchan was like that, but he was solid. He was composed, and he was a good tackler, good defender, shielded player, opposition, could get the ball off players easily. It was never rushed into a tackle, always jockeyed and got the ball. Great example, great leader, great captain for something like 10 of his 12 years at Old Trafford. He was captain. Never did anything dead glamorous or out the ordinary, but a really cultured player on the pitch and off. And we're just talking about the man. If I could just briefly tell this story, it's a longer story, but I'll make it short. In 1977, I was involved in a car crash coming back from a game at Ipswich. It was a very bad crash in which a friend was killed and three others were injured. 2 recovered very well. Another one was in hospital in a wheelchair for many months. Andy Towler. We got tickets to take him when he got out of hospital into the disabled part then, which was by the old tunnel. And Martin Buchan always stopped. He was coming out with the team with the ball in his hand, leading the Reds out at home matches, and stopped and had a few words with Andy. Not once, not the first time he saw him, but regularly in almost every home game. They stayed friends. And the end of that, the following May, United won the cup against Liverpool. When Buchan came back to Manchester on the team coach at Albert Hall, he saw Andy, who had got a special place in his wheelchair next to the bus coming up to the steps of the town hall. He went over to Andy, gave him the cup. The press took a picture with Buchan and Andy and the FA Cup that United had just won. And he later gave Andy his number 6 shirt from that game. Andy passed away about 9 years ago, and that shirt is now in the National Football Museum in Manchester.
That's tremendous.
But just that Martin Buchan will always have my respect for that. The way he dealt with somebody, he was the equivalent of Pogba now, or Maguire or Bruno.
Yep.
But he took time, just a few moments out regularly, just to talk to a fan, and very much a great man as well, a great player.
I sent him a picture a few years ago when he was head of the PFA, and he signed it and sent it back to me as well. So tremendous. That's a tremendous story, Pete. Thanks for sharing that. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been, and certainly tremendous from Martin Buchan. Right. So the next one for me, number 5, is Marcus Rashford, Wythenshaw's finest, as you see there. A Manchester boy. I mean, we all know what he's done sort of off the pitch, and what he's done on the pitch. And I think no secret that he struggled with injury the last little bit, which he's talked about. He's certainly out with surgery now, but would never recluse himself from the squad. Always wanted to be even if he was only 85-90%, wanted to play. And again, just a local hero, just a player that wants to do well for United. He's at the club. It says 2015 there, but he's been at the club since 2005 in the youth system, and then just his work, like I said, that he's done off the pitch, which makes him a hero not only to United fans because he's one of ours doing this, but also to football fans, I think, around the country. So just a tremendous person as well as player, and a player that I certainly look up to.
Yeah, and I love watching him. I remember he had an explosive beginning in a very, not a dark time, but a very boring time under Van Gaal, and burst on the scene in against Arsenal.
Yeah,
And I've never known in all my time watching United a player at such a young age gain so much respect from so many people, fans and just ordinary people alike around the country, for the way the values he's brought forward that are not to make himself look bigger in any way. It's for the good of others. Very benevolent. I think he'll build on that, and is a credit to United. Is a credit to himself and his family. And
absolutely,
and long may it continue.
Indeed. Right, over to a man who is now living over stateside, about 3 hours away from me. Merlin, Gordon Hill, hero of
King of all Cockneys.
Yeah, hero of the 70s. Him and Stevie Coppell on the wing in the FA Cup final against Liverpool. Take it away.
Well, that was it. Round about 75, when United had come back into the first division from that second division, they took the first division by storm, nearly won it, finished third in the end, but nearly won it. Got to the cup final, could have won the double, but lost to Southampton. But around about 75, there was one piece missing, and Doherty was playing a kind of 4-3-3, which was quite adventurous. But he realised, and he always got this, Doherty, that what you do at Old Trafford is try and play attractive football, as in nearly every game if you can. Ideally, it's got to be winning attractive football. And he switched it from 4-3-3 to 4-4-2 in those days by dropping a midfielder. I think it was Tommy Jackson, and he brought Gordon Hill for 75 grand, which was nothing even in those days. And that formed a wing partnership, like some great wing partnerships we've had down the years, but Stevie Coppell on the right, Gordon Hill on the left. And those two guys could go past players at speed, like the best of wingers we've had, and tormented defences from 75 to 77, 78. And with Pearson and Macari in the middle, and then Jimmy Greenhoff in the middle. United just had the most successful period since Busby winning the European Cup and the league titles. He excited you so much because of his speed and racing down the wing, but he could score goals. He played about just over 100 games, and I think scored just under 40 goals. But in 76, 77 and 77, 78, he was United's top goal scorer as a winger, He scored, he's probably two great games that stand out. We'd not been to a cup final for 13 years. And in 76 against Derby, who were the champions at that time, he scored 2 goals at Hillsborough against them in a semi-final to get us to our first final in 13 years against Southampton. And that got into hero status. One was a free kick, one was a shot from a kind of chip shot from 25 yards. Absolutely brilliant. 2 strokes of genius. And Gordon Hill, well, it already arrived, but he did it on the top stage. And there was another game in 77, 78 when Doherty had gone and Sexton had come in, and we went to San Etienne. It got over shadowed that by a lot of the trouble that went on off the pitch at that game. But that night, Gordon Hill had a game at San Etienne, who were one of Europe's top clubs then, and scored a goal, laid on 2 or 3 others that were disallowed for offside, and had the game of his life. He tore the French apart, and great player, great hero, again from the Stretford end. But when Sexton arrived, he just didn't he preferred defence and caution rather than attack and daring do. And Gordon Hill was moved on, transferred, and to very much to the anger of many United supporters.
Right. Well, like I said, I touched on a player that's now living over here and is running football schools over here, just a few hours away from where I live. So, Merlin, yeah, tremendous. Watch the 77 FA Cup final, folks. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole game. That connection and a connection I've touched on in the past with, of course, of all times, Pete, I touch on the Northern Irish right back who I constantly talk about, Jimmy Nicholl. Of course, it escapes me. Yeah. It's my old age. another player who lived, who was born about 30 minutes away from me in that side. So anyway, on to number 5 for me, and had to be, of course, the general, said it all, Roy Keane. Underrated passer for me, underrated his technique, his skill and his technical ability. A lot of people focus on, his leadership and the way he would drive us forward, and those things obviously are very prevalent. However, it's a tremendous. He was a tremendous passer of the ball for me. His ability to break lines, his ability to drive the team forward. And we talked about players who were stalwarts and you could count on week in and week out. You could count on Keane week in and week out, but he also you knew that with a team with Roy Keane, a side with Roy Keane in it, that there was going to be that little bit of extra to drive you forward, and that he was going to be the one that was going to take a stranglehold on the game when you needed to. You look at what he did. One of our shows, what he did in and against Juventus, and then in the 99 Champions League semi-final, the way he was able to drive us forward in that game, his epic battles against Arsenal, all of those years against Patrick Vieira. I put out a tweet the other day, and it was, if you go back and watch that ruckus in the tunnel, the fear that he instilled in that Arsenal team in the tunnel before that game won United the game. They won the game in the tunnel that day. It was just that terrific. So just a tremendous leader.
Yeah, we could do an hour just on Roy Keane, because he personified everything we want a player and a captain to be for Manchester United. So did Brian Robson. Yes. So did Martin Buchan. Yep. Bruno's kind of doing it now, I think. But we'll have to see
100%.
That is on. There's early signs.
Yeah.
But Roy Keane, you can't say enough about him. Best individual performance I've ever seen from a man in a United shirt in Turin that day, and a leader, and wouldn't stand for any frills. We don't want our heroes to have frills. We want them to do the stuff on the pitch. Then we'll adore them. We'll rise them. We'll build a statue for them. And Keane was exactly that. Still is. I'm glad he seems to have, I won't say softened up a bit, and I won't say it to his face, but he's easing up a little bit. He's able to laugh at himself a bit more, and that's good as a man, as a person. But
right. So on to your final hero, Pete. And a player, part of a brother tandem, one of the brother tandems that has played for United. One of my favorite signed pictures in my collection is that of Jimmy and Brian Greenhoff. But take it away on Brian, and tell us what endeared Brian to your heart.
Well, Brian came first in terms of being at the club. As in the end, it was Brian Greenhoff, the younger brother, and Jimmy Greenhoff, the older brother. Brian Greenhoff came through the ranks. I saw his debut again at Ipswich, coincidentally, again in 1973. He was 20. Came in as a raw young lad, and you could see Ipswich had a very good team in those days, but you could see he came in and sort of a bit like McTominay's done. Wouldn't be messed about, was going to give everything for the shirt, no frills, got stuck in as a midfielder. Again, not in a great side, in a side that was struggling. This is 1973. 12 months later, we were relegated. Started off as a midfielder, kind of established himself there. When Holton did break his leg, Doherty moved Brian Greenhoff to centre-back alongside Buchan in early 75. And from 75, 76, 77, that was the rock that team was built on. And strange, really, because Brian Greenhoff was only 5'9" tall, which for a centre back is far from tall. And he wasn't scrawny, but he wasn't as big as big Jim Holton. He wasn't brawny. he was United's first real footballing centre-half. It was coming in then. The Dutch had brought it in the early 70s, the total football concept.
Right.
Brian Greenhoff could play the ball out from the back. He was very good on the ground. And despite his height, very few opponents got the better of him. And it was mainly because, again, you're supposed to use the word tenacity. Once he got on the pitch, he just wanted United to win. But he didn't charge around like a mad dog. It wasn't so much a Fitzpatrick or a big clanging centre-half like Jim Holton could be. He just tackled very well, firmly, doggedly, from start to finish. Earned the respect of the players around him, the older players, you could tell that. And again, the fans fell in love with him right away. Had a great name because on the end of the Greenhoff, even the Stretford ender that struggled with words the most could get that chant out, and that echoed all around the grounds up and down the country for many years. And then when his brother came a few years later, of course, we were spoilt for Greenhoff. But Brian Greenhoff, when United did win their first trophy in 9 years, the first time we won a trophy after Busby won the European Cup was Liverpool in '77. A critical win, that, because it established United back in the big time. It also historically stopped Liverpool winning the treble. They'd won the league. They'd go on to Rome 4 days after that FA Cup final and win their first European Cup. So that win of ours, and it was just important that we won the cup, but we stopped Liverpool winning the treble. Brian Greenhoff, I don't think there was an official man of the match in those days, but everybody said he was man of the match, and any United fan that saw that will tell you that he's never say die spirit. Stood him in good stead that day. He had many very good games for United. Another one though was against Ajax in the UEFA Cup in '76, where he scored. And he led United from a 1-0 deficit away to win 2-0 at home. And again, set us back off in Europe after a 9-year break. So a hero, adored on the Stretford end, will never be forgotten.
Good stuff, Pete. Well, my final hero, and I think this is where it might get a tad controversial maybe for people, because it's certainly a polarizing figure, I think, in the United shirt. But allow me to explain myself here, folks. So my final hero for me is Michael Owen. And I've dubbed it the family man. And the reason why I say the family man is because I realize, obviously, the Liverpool connection. I realize, with this punditry now, it divides some opinions sometimes. But, Michael Owen burst onto the scene. I know it was of Liverpool, but my first recollections of Michael Owen are in the 1998 World Cup. And I was 18. He was 18, and it resonated with me that a teenager the same age, although he played for Liverpool, was on this world stage for England and absolutely thriving. So I always respected him as a player. I liked watching him play because I thought he was an exciting player. A healthy respect for a Liverpool player. Obviously, I didn't want to see them win anything, but I respected the fact that Michael Owen was a tremendous player. And when he joined United, because I liked him so much, I was happy that he joined United, actually. And then when he scored the winner against City, I think that maybe helped build a little bit of a bridge to United fans. But it was the following season that I actually won a competition with my dad to go over to Old Trafford and sit in a private box with Michael and his family. We've sort of stayed in touch, and, we sort of communicate on Twitter a bit. When I was having my first child, he sent me a message and wished me luck with becoming a dad. So, it was one of those moments that he gave me and my dad, loving United, to be able to a chance of a lifetime to go sit with a player in a box with their family and just experience Old Trafford in a way that I would never get to experience it. And he's a tremendous guy in terms of, what he did for us, and his family was terrific with us that day. So that's why, we talked again, the ultimate personal connection, I suppose, and having that with Michael Owen and being him allowing us into his family, I guess, on that day, is what makes him my final hero. Now, obviously, yes, is there going to be the likes of Eric Cantona, and we touched on the tremendous players at the start of this, but it's that personal connection, and I hope that explains it to people. Before we went live, I talked about Michael Owen, and Pete said, yeah, you're going to have some explaining to do. So I hope I've done it some justice there, Pete, with that explanation.
If I was the Pope and could give you absolution for this, I think with that personal touch you mentioned, and your dad and the box, and you mentioned the last-minute goal in the 4-3 win against City, I think if I was the Pontiff, I would side on. I would not excommunicate you. I think you will have to move to a safe house now. I could. There was a lot of a funny noise when you first started that. And I think it was the sound of computers turning off around the country and the globe. No, the one thing about Michael Owen was he could laugh at himself. And when the United fans chanted at him when he was playing for United, or when he come out, you scouse so and so, he took it in good heart. He realised they weren't slagging him off. He played for us now, and he was in our shirt, and that was good enough. But we still pulled his leg about being a scouser. That's fine. If they wear a red shirt, a United red shirt, then we should always respect that. I think that, and whether it's a player or a manager, or it's somebody from Mars, we should respect that post always. And he did a job for us. I was amazed when Fergie went for him. He must have been swayed by the brochure that his agent did, because I believe that was touted around. But no, he certainly was a very good player of his time, his younger days. And the City goal does it for me. Yeah, and he had a hat-trick in the Champions League that season as well against Wolfsburg. That I remember he was tremendous in that game. So that first season, he did score some goals for us. Of course, he got his first his league winners medal. That next season, when we went over, I was fortunate. I had his number 7 on the shirt from my United shirt the season before, so I got him to sign it, the shirt that he was wearing for that City goal. So that'll be a memory that I have as well. But yeah, that's it. And I know it might divide opinion, certainly, but get in the comments or get on Twitter and tell me why I'm off my head for picking him if you want. It's fine. I'll take it. Do that, everybody. But so that sort of finishes it up, Pete. And obviously, we've been going for just over an hour here, and tremendous stuff. Thank you for sharing all your memories with us. And certainly there were some heroes that we couldn't get to, and obviously, on my list, I had Park Ji-sung and Darren Fletcher as players that I sort of point to as well. I mean, the job that Darren Fletcher and Park did in those big games. I think of what they both did in the against Arsenal and at the Champions League semifinal. I think 08-09, where Park scored, and then Fletcher just instrumental in those two ties as well. But big games in general. And I know you had some players on your list that you sent me, including, of course, Brian Robson, Mark Hughes, Joe Jordan. I think there was one more that I missed, but I think we Norman Whiteside. Yeah, those players from Atkinson's early time, but it was just in the too hard to do draw to get 7. But those were just 7. I wanted to give a bit of publicity on this, because we walked down the Warwick Road. It's about United's whole history, not just the glamour pussies and the glory winners, but all our history. They've all played a part, and but it's been good to get the contrast of the last 25 years and perhaps the early those 60s and 70s. So, but I've enjoyed doing it, Tim. Thanks very much for doing that. We'll be back in a month, I guess. Yeah, back in a month, and we hope we've done this topic justice. We wanted to make it like we're at the pub with your mates and you're just pulling players, that resonate with you. So we hope we've done that. Hope we've sort of done all these players justice. But we'll be back in a month, Pete. And I think the best way to end it, I do have that video of Wolves. We'll see you in a month. Viva Ronaldo makes his return to Old Trafford on September 11th against Newcastle. And we'll see you soon, folks.
Yeah.